were not working before. I don't know whether you've heard about the Financial Services Promotion Agency. It is an organization which basically goes all around the world to promote Mauritius as a international financial center and get investors to come to Mauritius. And that started sometime in March and has been in operation for 4 months. And I will tell you what are the results which have already been achieved and what is coming through the pipeline in the future. Then, of course, we reactivated the Financial Services Consultative Council because we needed to get all the people who are operators in the sector to come and brainstorm with us, to share ideas, and to see that we are definitely doing things the right way, going in the right direction. And then we also created something which is going to be very relevant to you, the Financial Services Institute. Because we did realize also that when we start bringing those multinational and those investors from overseas to set up in Mauritius and create those opportunities for employment for all of you, then we need, of course, the software to go with the hardware. So you being the software, you need to have appropriate training, and there needs to be capacity building so that you get people who can move up the value chain and understand the sophisticated products in the financial world. So the Financial Services Institute is also being set up for that purpose. And of course, probably a lot of you will come there to be able to gain that sort of exposure which is going to be available, and I have to chance to give us a helping hand with that as well. Now, then we of course started looking at other countries. So when I looked at the portfolio of financial services, the first thing I wanted to know was how much is that sector contributing to GDP, to the gross domestic product of Mauritius. And I found out that it was 10.4%, of which global business, which is very commonly known as the offshore industry, represented about 3 to 4%. Insurance, the insurance sector represented about 5 to 6%. And then of course you have other aspects like the stock exchange and the leasing sector. So I looked at that and I said, okay, if we want to increase our percentage of GDP, where do we need to concentrate? And the first thing I decided to do was to enhance the operations of the stock exchange of Mauritius. Because when I look at the stock exchange, the way it has been operating for the last, 10, 20 years, I mean, you have a list of companies which are there, and they are mostly local companies. But if you want to become a vibrant international financial center, if you want to lead in this part of the world, if you want to become that gateway for Africa, then you need to have that buoyancy, that vibrancy on your stock exchange. So we went to South Africa, we met with the representative of the Joburg Stock Exchange over there, and we sat and we talked with them, and we said to them, look, if we join hands, there's quite a lot of things we can do. Because in Mauritius, we have a lot of advantages, which probably people don't know about. Like, for instance, we don't have exchange controls, so you have free-flowing capital coming in, going out. Money can come and leave Mauritius as much as possible. Whereas in other countries, like South Africa, like India, we do have exchange controls. So we told them, we said, look, why don't we have dual listings? So whatever companies, shares, stocks are listed on the Joburg Stock Exchange, they can also list on the Mauritius Stock Exchange, and that is going to create a volume of activity. And they said yes. They understood the benefits for both economies, and they said fine. We also introduced a fast tracking system, because we don't like to do things slowly. And we said, let's introduce this fast tracking system. Then I told them, I said, look, we have bright young graduates in Mauritius who basically don't have an opportunity to learn really sophisticated products and move up the value chain and be people who tomorrow can go and work in Luxembourg, in Singapore, and everywhere. Because even though people do put a lot of effort into studying like you, there hasn't been much opportunity in Mauritius to develop talent so at international level you can shine. So, in that context, we asked them, can we enter into a memorandum of understanding whereby you can take some people on the Joburg Stock Exchange, train them and send them back to us, capacity building. And we agreed. After that, we went to India. Of course, we had to renegotiate the double tax treaty with India, which had been left affairs for almost 10 years. So whilst doing that in Delhi, I decided that we should also go to Mumbai and meet investors and convince those investors to come and invest in Mauritius. And we've had very successful meetings over there as well. But then I said to the team, I said, look, I would like to visit the National Stock Exchange of India and meet the CEO and the representatives there, because I believe a lot can be done by, by both exchanges working together, like we did in Joburg. So we went there. It was there were heavy rains, I remember, monsoon rains. We went there, we received a huge, fantastic welcome. And then we sat there and explained the vision of the Mauritian government for the next 10 to 20 years for the financial services sector, and explain how we can work together and how we can benefit both countries. And again, we were very impressed, and we agreed. And I have the pleasure of announcing to you that on the 2nd of September, the whole team of the National Stock Exchange of India are coming to Mauritius to set up the first trading platform where all the shares, stocks, funds which are listed on the Stock Exchange of India, the NSE, will also be traded now on the Mauritius Stock Exchange, the Stock Exchange of Mauritius, in US dollars. Can you imagine the level of activity which is going to happen now on the Stock Exchange of Mauritius? When you talk about everything which is bought and sold in India on their exchange is now going to be available for trading here. Plus, we also agreed with them that the NSE and the SEM are going to basically create a joint platform so that we can go to Africa and get all the multinationals and all the corporations which are listed on the African exchanges to have a dual listing on that exchange here in Mauritius. Now imagine the opportunities for you there going forward in terms of all the firms of stockbrokers who are going to come and set up here now, and the vibrancy and the buoyancy that this market is going to achieve, and the opportunity for people who have studied accountancy, finance, management, and of course, courses which will be offered by the Financial Services Institute to take that experience and that knowledge that you have and give you that sophistication on working with one of the most vibrant stock exchanges which will be available in this part of the world. Now, when I went to Singapore last week, I also visited SJX, which is the stock exchange of Singapore. And on Monday last, I met with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance in Singapore, together with my colleague, Minister of Finance, Vishnu Naidu. And during the conversation, I explained to him how I believe Mauritius and Singapore can work hand in hand, because what we're doing is complementary, and we shouldn't be looking at both countries as being competitors, as it has been for the last 10, 15 years, especially in terms of the financial services sector and the tax treaties which are being signed. So I explained that if you look at all the investment which is coming out of Asia, and which is structured in Singapore, whether it is on the debt market or the equity market, we could create a dual hub where Singapore and Mauritius would have a bilateral agreement. So all the investment coming out of China, going through Singapore, would go through Mauritius and then find its way to Africa and all the projects which have to be financed in terms of the development which is going to take place on the African continent for the next 20 years. And I tell you what, he looked at me and he says, this is going to work. This is going to work. Now imagine the potential there for jobs which are going to be created and how you can orientate your career in terms of this vision, which I say again, is your future. Again, I spoke to him about the stock exchange, and I said to him, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, there are 4 hours difference between Mauritius and Singapore, and you are ahead of us in time zone. Just imagine if whatever is traded on the SJX can be replicated on the Mauritius Stock Exchange, we can have half a day's trading every single day, which is going to benefit both Singapore and Mauritius. Because if it closes there at 1 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, it will be 1 o'clock in Mauritius. So you could continue the trading in Mauritius until 5 o'clock. Now, I'm also pleased to announce that they agreed to that, and they said, okay, let's work on a memorandum of understanding take it forward, do the follow-ups, and then see how we can finalize this, because it's going to be in benefit of both countries, especially that the main competitor is Dubai, which is on the same time zone as Mauritius, so both Mauritius and Singapore will benefit. Now just imagine for a minute the map of the world. Joburg in South Africa, Mumbai in India, and Singapore, all linked through Mauritius and the stock exchange of Mauritius. And the opportunities to go and conquer Africa for the next 10 to 20 years. Now this is the vision of this government. This is the vision of our ministry. Plus on top of that, we've had numerous initiatives which have been put in place to develop the insurance sector. Because like I told you, it was 5 to 6% of GDP. Now when I looked at that, I said, okay, what constitutes that 5 to 6%? And then I found out that it is domestic insurance. Of course, Mauritius Union. And then we have companies like Anglo-Mauritius, Swan, of course, had BAI before. So this was all in terms of life insurance, general insurance, medical insurance, and whatever is available on the domestic market. But this is not the only insurance offerings, insurance business-related offerings which are available. And when you look at the African continent, which is there, companies which come and set up their regional headquarters in Mauritius can operate from here. Now, we've had a number of companies which have already come when we started approaching them. Coupe is the 5th largest insurance broker in Mauritius. They have already been licensed by the FSC. They have already started operations, and they are recruiting people, and they're taking a first batch of 50 persons in the weeks to come. We've also had All Mutual, which is one of the largest insurance companies in the world, and also Edu Asset Management. Then we've had, when I visited the UK, I met with the CEO of Prudential, and they're interested now to come and have a look at the Mauritian market. And I tell you what, all these insurance companies, even Lloyd's Group, I met with the CEO of Lloyd's Group in London, Nika. And when we explained the development which is going to happen in the port sector in Mauritius, we were very much interested in cargo insurance, in reinsurance activities, and also in terms of captive insurance. Now, what basically got these people interested in Mauritius, and you will be surprised to hear this, they told me that the way that you have dealt with one of the most, I don't have adjectives to qualify it because it's so huge that it could have brought the whole country down. The largest financial scandal which has hit our shores since time immemorial, the BAI scandal, would have brought down this whole country. 200,000 families out of 1.2 million people in Mauritius would have suffered. Can you imagine? 19 billion rupees which have been taken from people by going house to house and convincing them to enter into a scheme which was called the super cash gold. Even the name is suspicious. Super cash gold. And 90 billion rupees is 19,000 million rupees. Can you imagine you could fill up this whole room with cash? 19,000 million rupees. And that wasn't enough. When you look at Brahma Investments, Brahma Asset Management Limited, Brahma Property Fund, NEC Capital, Emerging Africa bond which were issued, and then Bramso bonds, so hospital, you're adding another 5 billion, 5,000 million more. That's 24 billion rupees. To go and deal with a situation like this in 4 months, when you have been in office only for 3 months before, and you didn't even have a team, you didn't have buildings, you didn't have anything, is nothing less than a case study for Harvard. And I tell you what, if you ask me how this government has been able to deal with a huge Ponzi scheme like this, I'll tell you, I don't know. Because no matter how much hard work, how many hours, how many sleepless nights you have, without help from the Almighty, you can't resolve something like this in 130 days. And this should be a lesson learned for the whole of Mauritius. It should be something that you, as young professionals who are now going to practice and work in the industry also, you have to bear in mind. Because I tell you, none of this would have been possible. None of these families would have been in a position where they would have suffered the way they did. Some people died, some people committed suicide. Some people had kids like you who were studying abroad and have invested into those products. Some people had worked all their lives and invested their money, their VRS, their lump sums, after 20, 30 years of hard work, into something that they believed was safe. And some people are still asking the question, was this really a fraud? Hasn't the government acted with vengeance as it was a political vendetta? Was that not a communal sort of aspect? There's a communal aspect to it. But it's basic. If you think about it like accountants, let me tell you in 1 minute what it's all about. If you go and collect a huge amount of money by going into people's houses and telling them to sign forms and telling them that I'm going to give you a high return, 10, 12, 14% return, all that money which is collected between 2008 to 2014, where does it go? It must be kept somewhere. It goes into a bank account, of course. And it's very easy to find out what happened next, because you only have to look at the bank statements from that account where all the money went in, and you trace it, and you follow the audit trail, and you see where the cash has gone. Now, some of the cash has been invested into companies, whether it is Apollo, or Courts, or Iframac, or some of the companies. But it's not denied by anybody. Even the honorable leader of the opposition said that Apollo was making 2.5 billion losses as up to December 2014. When you look at the financial statements of Iframac, the auditors qualified the report and basically said that losses of 79 million should in fact have been 451 million. Why? Because they tampered with the application of IAS 19 on revenue recognition. Why? Because when Iframac was making losses, they decided to move one of the largest assets of Courts, the HP book, the hire purchase book, because when people go and buy furniture or whatever equipment from Courts, they will pay over a period of time, or it is 24 months or 36 months. So all this money will come in. Now that HP book is the biggest asset of Courts, because that is the money which is going to flow in the next 2 to 3 years. So they took that HP book, they went and sold it to Brother Bank, and then we got Brother Bank to finance Iframac on the basis of that HP book, which was the major asset of Courts. So when it went there, the first payment was 100 million. It went there to reduce the losses of Iframac, which had been created already. And you know what they did? They changed the name of Courts and they called it Iframac Retail. So you have Iframac Transport and Iframac Retail. My question to you as accountants, where does that leave Courts? Well, let me tell you, there's no legal entity which is called Courts. Even everybody talks about it and the press publishes every day. There's only one entity which is called Iframac Retail. And Courts became an empty shell because it had a building. And most of the branches and buildings are rented, and then we had employees. But then they had no asset. The most important asset had already been transferred to the bank, and from the bank to Iframac to reduce the losses. So in effect what they did was they took one of the major assets of a company and they sent it to another company to reduce the losses there through creating accounting techniques. Then when you look at all the balance sheets, we would ask yourself the question, how the balance sheet balance? If you have liabilities on the one side and assets on the other side, I can tell you, there has been so much tampering with fair value adjustments. It's incredible. It's like you should have rewritten the standard on fair value adjustments. Only to mask the excess liabilities to the assets. But then, as accountants, you would know But whatever you have in a group structure, and individual companies' accounts have been, we don't only say books, but we have been glossed by, some kind of sophisticated accounting techniques. But when you look at the holding company on top, which is holding the shares of the whole group, then all the intercompany transactions, all the fair value adjustments, everything disappears, because now you're looking at a group structure. So that group holding cloud investments, the accounts were kept not in Mauritius, but in the Bahamas. And if you go to the registrar of companies there to get a copy of these accounts, you won't get it, because it's not being filed. So when we eventually got the accounts of cloud investments, which is the holding company, then we saw that the auditors, and this is the lesson to learn and what you should pay attention to. The audited accounts were not qualified, but there was an emphasis of matter. You know, emphasis of matter on the reports, which basically states that the excess liabilities of the whole group over the assets of the group are $302 million US. And the auditors had the audacity of calling that an emphasis of matter, but did not judge that sufficient to qualify these accounts. And the auditors were a company operating in Mauritius, based in London. So $302 million US excess liabilities of the asset is 10 billion rupees of excess liabilities. Where did the money go? When you take away all the accounting, creative accounting techniques in terms of window dressing, in terms of shifting assets from company to company, in terms of intercompany transaction, in terms of loans between entities, then you end up with that reality, and it is in the accounts. So, now these accounts were for the financial year end 31st December 2012. And you know when they were signed? On the 17th of September 2014, which is only 6-7 weeks prior to the general elections. Now that's the reality of what happened in the year. And everything you've read in the press in terms of people giving their opinion, people deciding to comment in terms of, do you seriously think that a newly elected government who basically comes into power within 3 months will go and destroy a company which is employing thousands of people and which has got so many additional businesses associated with it? That's really not government to do something like that. And then to face the consequences of job losses and the social aspects and the financial crisis which would follow, who would take a risk like that? But still, people in Mauritius are still asking questions as to whether it was a fraud, whether there were good intentions, bad intentions, what motives were there. But let me tell you one thing. The whole thing had collapsed in 2012. It was kept afloat by the political influence which the group was benefiting from, as the number one of the group had very strong relationship with the previous Prime Minister. That's a fact. The regulator didn't do anything. That's why I decided to sack the chairman and chief executive of the FSC. That's why I decided to sack the whole National Committee on Corporate Governance. Because you can't tell people to go and sign financial statements in which you have a statement of adherence to good governance when you know that this kind of thing is happening, which is going to bring the whole country down, which is going to bring 200,000 families into misery, which is going to cause the death of certain people, including 2 persons in my constituency in Battleborn. And those who participated in life have blood on their hands. And you know, like Shakespeare says, in Macbeth, all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten those little hands. And this is not the responsibility you carry as accountants. Because you have the power to do a lot of good, but you also have the power to do a lot of harm. if you lose track of professionalism, if you lose track of integrity, if you become motivated only by greed, and you lose all the values and principles which have made you who you are today. So you have to be very careful. You do have this power. And you have to exercise it for the benefit of everyone, for yourself, for your parents, for your relatives, for your friends, for your children tomorrow. And of course, for this country, because it is high time to bring back to this country the level of patriotism that this country deserves, and that can only come from you. This government cannot do this alone. We need you to participate with us in that process. And we will be there for you. We will facilitate everything we can. We will assist in every way we can. We will create that platform for you. We will bring that vision to reality. And on Saturday, Simon Bujanat is going to explain to the whole nation what this vision is. And I would sincerely ask you to listen to him on Saturday. Because this is being done as a legacy. He's not going to be here in 5 years' time to be a Prime Minister of Mauritius. Vishnu is not going to be here in 5 years' time to be the Minister of Mauritius. I probably might decide not to be here in 5 years' time and to come back and work as a professional like you. Because politics is not my game. I'm a professional who finds his way in politics. So, to understand what today means for you, it is the start of everything, like I said. With those words, I would like to congratulate Charmaine and wish you all the success in your career. Thank you.
Compagnie pour la qui dans cette tête pour penser une compassion. C'est la plusieurs contactés qui est bonne, mais la troisième sélection, c'est un contacté français, un anglais et un belge. Alors, si vous faites une interview, il a fait tous les points des résultats. C'est qu'on peut sagement français là, il met 6 millions là, qui fait 6 millions. Il y a 6 millions, il y a des millions sous la pension, des millions pour les sabotages et des millions au vide. C'est bon? En Ménage, ça peut mettre 9 millions. Il y avait plus 6 millions, pour 9 millions, il fait 9 millions. On met sur le monsieur, nous, la péninsule, la pivot cadet la pension, alors 3 millions pour la pension, 3 millions et sabotage, etc. Et 3 millions au vide. Et dans les tout là, donc ça met 12 millions de jeunes. Et on va pouvoir, il y a un certain de la guerre pour là. Vous connaissez l'armée? Il vit dans une cause dans son extérieur là. Je pose que ça. 3 millions de poches, 3 millions de vos poches. 6 millions là, le tranche la guerre. Mais heureusement, il y a une ministre de bonne gouvernance à l'orange de jeu Roche-Badet qui fait un travail extraordinaire. Et je donne ce mandat sur l'équipe aussi, ma comptable. Parce qu'il faut reconnaître un match football, parce que c'est le terrain, c'est pas du qui est élu, c'est supporté. Alors, un grand applaudissement pour M. le ministre, pour ce qu'il fait faire aujourd'hui. Maintenant, nous sommes experts pour nous démarquer, là, vous pouvez penser, vous pouvez pas l'enregistrer qui est présent dans la salle là. Pourquoi on a une histoire, bon, d'ailleurs, je disais d'abord, moi, on connaît beaucoup d'abord, moi, qui beaucoup aimé pas contre ce pays. Beaucoup bénéficient, je ne sais pas comment je te dis. On va dire plus ou moins, il y a bien bon nom. Mais ça n'a pas d'histoire qui est très normal. Quand tout bébé, tout bébé est invité pour aller faire des excursions. C'est bon, qu'il arrive, tout bébé rentre des bis et tout bébé rentre des deux bis. Mais tous les deux à même la place, même à même utilisateur. Malgré que vous êtes bis bébé, il tombe dans tout, tout bébé beau. Aspire, il a bénéficié de l'eau. Pour la méditer, à faire. Il a fait explorer, parce qu'il n'a pas fait compte, comme il faut explorer, informer sa main il a besoin. Et il est en parler à explorer. Peut-être là, il est dans le miracle, il est peut-être c'est pas possible. C'est qu'il a fait pour qu'il m'agisse, c'est pas possible, c'est injuste, c'est qu'il a fait. Non, il dit là, comme ça, je suis de bébé. ada l'école mana dia subis dia bis. Usted bermain so, subis dia no, mati berkap dia pada dia so. Dia bis, mama dia pasti bermain so, subis dia no, mati dia berkap dia bis mana. Bis kita mau kota tu bis ko. Ai dia sudah boleh dia mau sama-sama sih. Sebab mau sama-sama. Ini betul tak? Musuh kasih sana picit sudah kopi besi dia mau sikit dia. Jangan lakukan demonstrasi dia. Sekarang ini tak cuba dia. Jadi, aku sendiri tu dia mau pakai omongan mau sewa di rumah. Tiga macam berapa dia nanti apa silo tu ada. Dia main kotak dah cukup kotak dah. Lu tak je kotak dah dengan kartu dengan kartu. Tidak jadi kita telefon dah sak kita nak lakukan apa aku ni. Ini aku sahaja. Ini apa ni dia? Dia pun tak ada. Ini dia senang orang cerita boleh contoh. Donc, on va donner des histoires pour ouvrir le grand gros. Donc, ça là, c'est un échec mondial. Ce n'est pas assez. Ce sont des choses qui sont des candidatures. C'est le terme de barrière à coéquiper. C'est le terme de barrière, c'est le terme de franc. Vous devez prendre le combat, ça donne à votre affaire. Tout le monde est cassé, on a tous les portugais, ça. Ça là, c'est un guichet, ça nous sommes en télé. Tous les unités de télé. La case aussi. Regardez. Betul tidak? Nanti belakang, ya itu pun boleh kalau dalam zina ini mixer bu, kalau dalam zina ini mixer, saya tak ada belakang soe, dan saya ini boleh, ada betul, nanti belakang, kalau dalam zina ini mixer bu, dalam zina ini mixer, saya boleh ada belakang soe. Wajah tu saya kira soe boleh tahu, di mana belakang, kita tu soe ada, ini siapa mana tu dia, jangan kami soe sini ni saya tahu ada, ia di mana kita ada. Siapa yang mau baca namanya? Jawab, siapa siapa bilang kita jadi manusia, siapa mau pakai mana mana boleh satu disoji, mau bisa boleh disoji. Tadi bisa. Berarti waktu itu siapa?
At start, I could figure out the stress and the hard work I've done all this time. Now I can see you're laughing and smiling, and this is what we need in life. So it was a bit out of ordinary. I hope you appreciated this initiative. Now, you know, we will have a family photo. So what will I give a piece of advice? We will go from this side, from left. So all the graduates with your cap, everything. So we will follow Mr. Ali. We will take a family picture together with the lecturers, and the parent will stay outside. And then when we come back, you will have the souvenir on the other side. You can take a photo with your family, loved one, etc. Because this will be very good quality from Mr. Ari here. So we won't like to go on the first row, second row, third row, and it's not far. There is a nice place everybody can fit in. We have a nice family picture, and you will have a copy of this, of course, for the souvenir for your graduation. Apart from this, after we will have a cocktail